I get Riverside's like, leave the studio now. Maybe it's just preempting, screwing it up. Here we are back on Riverside. I'm with Trevor, our newest SkillBridge fellow. I'm in a climbing gym and just got to think about and talk about motivation. And I'm excited about this conversation because Trevor and I have been going back and forth about motivation all week with different thoughts and ideas and kicking things around. And it's just a complex, hard subject. So we're here to think about it. We don't have the answers. We're here to have a fun conversation. It'll probably go on all week. Trevor, welcome. I'm excited. I'm motivated to talk about this topic with you. What is motivation, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, like you said, I think this is fantastic. I've been motivated all week to talk about this, honestly. Going back and forth and the curiosity aspect of it, the discussion that we're going to have now is going to continue on. But I think for me, the basic, kind of nuts and bolts of motivation would be kind of a desire or a will to do something. Like in its simplest form, that's the best I can come up with. Now, in reality, it is way more complex than that, right? It is a whole bunch of different processes, whether it is biological processes, psychological processes, you name it, that kind of they help us initiate, direct, and sustain any type of goal seeking behavior that we've got that's out there. Um, it exists on spectrums, right? Like we've been talking about with Dosey and Ryan, like the spectrum that they've got for self-determination theory, from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation. I'm really curious, as I started going through and looking at intrinsic motivation and flow states, right? Because that being the highest level of intrinsic motivation. If you look at what Csikszentmihalyi, there you go. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Csikszentmihalyi,
yeah. Yeah.
That's a test. You have to be able to.
That's a test, right?
To be
right. If you're going to talk about flow, you have to be able to talk about it to say pronounce his name. So with Mihai, if you really look at it, the only correlation between self-determination theory and flow state, like if you look at the self-determination theory spectrum that they've got there, intrinsic motivation is only one category. It's to the far right, and it isn't broken down any further. But if you look at what Mihai was saying with flow states, he says it's the optimal level of intrinsic motivation. So there's got to be some room in between on there, and it's been curious and it's been ruminating around my head for a little bit. So I wonder what your thoughts are now that we've got kind of a baseline of what motivation is, I guess.
My gosh, we need to make these longer, I think. I really like Tyler Van Horn, one of our partners, says it's why we do stuff. And I love how simple that is. And I want to call out, like you said, motivation is complex. I think by that, like science means everything's interconnected and there are feedback loops between everything, which makes sense. Like if you're kind of motivated to do a project, you do the project, you do a great job, and you get lots of good feedback, you're going to be more motivated to do the same work in a higher quality later, which is going to create higher performance, or vice versa. Like there could be a vicious or virtuous cycle. If you're a little bit tired, then your performance is going to go down, and so your motivation is going to go down, which is going to make you more tired and burned out. And so there are these feedback loops all the time that are, it's funny, but Snickers bars and things like that, like our level of glucose. And we're talking about thinking fast and slow. Like if I do this, it forces my mouth into a smile, which makes me more focused and happy and like what I'm doing more. Yeah, that's crazy. I can motivate myself by putting a pencil in my mouth. So I think it's why we do stuff. I think it is super complex. I have this massive diagram that I shared with you that I keep adding to. And I'm curious how we make it simple enough to be useful, because we talk about motivational speakers and like, as a leader, you have to motivate your people. And I don't know. That just seems wildly hard. What do you think?
Yeah, and the motivating your people thing, right? You hear that constantly. Um, And it doesn't matter if it's in the civilian world or like my background in the military, yours, put in both worlds. Um, Motivating people, and especially in a team concept, team construct is extremely hard because not only are you can know people individually as a leader. That's kind of your job, is to know who's on your team, what motivates them, those sorts of things. Kind of what external factors that they're dealing with on a daily basis that'll kind of influence how you interact with that person and how you can motivate them. But once you get a team together, once now you have to now it's the interconnected dynamics of motivation between people, all of the backgrounds and all the baggage and all the stuff that they're dealing with on the outside that they're now bringing with them to work. Somebody's contributions might be uplifting and more motivating, right? I can't tell you the number of times I've come to work and been kind of, my energy levels are down. I'm not really motivated to do something, and then somebody on the team just does something amazing, right? You look at it with the Navy SEAL training, and when they're all sugar cookies, right? And somebody starts singing, and it immediately changes the dynamic and the motivation of the team that's out there. Like, I can't count the number of times that I've been in scenarios like that, and seen those sorts of things. But it all comes down to the outside influences and background and frame of reference, like we've been talking about. You and I going back and forth for the last couple of days.
Yeah, that makes me think when we talk about teams. We said we're going to talk about this next week, but now we're going to just dive into it. I've always, like, we've taught emotional intelligence, and Daniel Goleman, one of the foremost thought leaders in emotional intelligence, has like 12 points, and one of them is motivation. I was like, well, what does that have to do? Like, I've taught motivation, I've taught McClelland and Maslow, all these kind of theories about needs and wants, which I want to get to. What's the difference? Needs and wants. Where's the line? It's not that clear. There are all these theories out there, and what do they have to do with emotions? But it really is being in tune with yourself. And I think, like, we have all these theories about leadership, transformational leadership. We throw that one around. I've taught it proudly to midshipmen and people. Like, this is transformational leadership, intrinsic motivation. And it's all BS a little bit. Like, what idealized influence, inspirational motivation? Like, what the hell does that even mean? And how do you break it down into daily actions? And I think it breaks down into, you're emotionally intelligent. You walk into the room, you're like, wow, like, everybody's coated in sand and seems down. I'm going to sing a funny song, and it works. Or like, wow, Trevor is super happy today. I'm going to ask him what's up and like stoke that fire because that's really cool. It's all kind of that ability to see what's going on and tap into it and kind of nudge it in the right direction. It's not some inspirational motivation, whatever that is, in my opinion. I'm souring on. I don't think it's wrong, just not super useful.
Yeah, and like the inspirational motivation, I think there is a point to it at some in at some level, maybe, um, just as a spark to get something started. And then goes back to kind of talking about Angela Duckworth and about grit and drive, determination, those sorts of things. Um, I know you and I previously, talked about David Goggins and motivation is crap, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
With a lot
to
of
a point, it's absolute.
explicatives.
All right, I figured I'd keep it a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
more family friendly while we're out here.
yeah.
But no, but it's definitely one of those things that yes or yes but, however you want to look at it. There's aspects to each that have their validity. Like, you're not going to be motivated all the time. That's that inspirational kind of ups and downs that you're going to have.
Thanks for saying
And
that.
then
I thought something was wrong with me. So
it's the, that the grit and determination, right? But how do you get that? Those are the big ones that, as you're going through, there's some very interesting things that Duckworth and everybody goes through about grit, determination, passion, purpose, um, and how that plays into motivation. But like you said, with emotional intelligence, what do you think is the correlation between passion and purpose and emotional intelligence type stuff?
The correlation. Well, I want to go back. I don't know if this is going to answer your question.
Okay, yeah,
I'm
let's
going
go
to
back.
pick on inspirational motivation. I don't know why. It's bothering me. Motivation is not. It's not. And I think I've thought of it as this for a long time as a leader. It's like I do certain things, and my team is a motivated team. It doesn't work like that. Like at 10 a.m., my team's motivated. At 11:30, they're hungry, so they're not. At 4 p.m., they want to go home, so they're not. Fred has a infant at home. He's not motivated ever. He's just tired and trying to get through it. We have a small win. Someone calls and says they want to buy something. We're motivated. So I think we think of motivating people as like, well, if I do A, then B happens. And it's really very nuanced and complex. And I really like this idea of like, why am I at a rock climbing gym? Well, I get into flow. I'd love to talk about more flow. It's fascinating. I get to be related. Like I get to talk to a friend and hang out with someone. Extrinsically, it helps me be in shape and hones my skills so that I can look like I know what I'm doing as a rock climbing guide. It gives me time and space to think and use podcasts, listen to things, talk to people, refine ideas. Like there are all these different things. It helps me get fit so I can go do things that I like to do. All these different things, and they're all layered and kind of like emotions. Like I call emotions brown now because you're never just happy or just angry or just sad. You have a million things going on in your life. You're a little bit sad because your kid didn't call that week, and you're really happy because a project went through, and you're angry because someone just cut you off. And so your emotion is like this weird, goppy, brown experience, and emotionally intelligent people can pick that apart. And I think the same thing applies for motivation. Like I'm not motivated or not motivated. I'm maybe some motivated. I'm extrinsically, I'm intrinsically, I'm in flow. Some of it's just character and grit and discipline. So as leaders, can we pick that apart for our team and for ourselves and say like, hey, I know you're not intrinsically motivated, but we need to be extrinsically motivated today because this deadline's coming up. And if we don't, this happens. And like, this is pretty interesting. Like, let me layer some intrinsic motivation in. So I'm curious what you think about this idea of layering or adding different types of motivation purposefully, ideally, right? Like,
Yeah. For, oh yeah, yeah, definitely purposely. Looking at from a leader's perspective and going back to being an emotionally intelligent leader and those sorts of things, you versus say somebody that's trying to just be a motivational leader and just rah rah, everybody's going to do this, it's going to be great. Here's the end, like you said, everybody's going to have a different path and a different meaning toward to get to that end. That end state means something different to a lot of people. So layering and being able to, some people are just hard charging, go at it, and like they want to be there, do those sorts of things because they don't have a whole lot of external factors that are driving and weighing them down. Other people have lots of external factors that are weighing them down, and I think from a leader's perspective, the way that you can influence somebody's motivation is maybe giving them some sort of a new frame to look at that particular problem or that particular task or subcomponent as. Like if there's somebody that likes learning, right, that task might be really difficult, but frame it in a learning that will be applied to a future scenario that they haven't encountered yet, that maybe you have as the leader. I mean, that's really one of the leader's tasks is to, use your experiences and knowledge, understanding, wisdom, all of that stuff that goes along with it to bring the next level of people up with, and honestly be better than you are. And in order to do that, it's reframing a lot of those current challenges that the team has in order to motivate them for the future.
Yeah, I love the idea of reframing. And just in that example, I think we should make explicit intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. You did both, right? You're saying learning, there's curiosity, you're just engaged with it for the sake of the thing. The sciencey word is autotelic. Like flow experiences are autotelic. I mountain bike because mountain biking is freaking fun. And there's nothing more to it, right? They're extrinsic. I get more in shape and I have the benefits of awe, blah, blah, all those things. But I do it because it's autotelic. In and of itself is motivating. But you're learning so that you can apply it to a later task so that you can get promoted, take on higher responsibilities, all these other things. Like it's kind of almost both, right? Like it's intrinsic, it's developing this mastery. Dan Pink says purpose, mastery, and autonomy. But it's also doing something for the sake of a external reward that's not associated with the actual thing at hand. Like money or pay or promotions, and those are good. And Ryan and Desi, I think, do a really good job of outlining an extrinsic motivation. There's a continuum of how much internal locus of control you have. So if you're a kid and you don't like doing homework, and I, as your father, I'm like, do your homework now. You have to. Like you're at the far extrinsic, like I have to, or my dad's going to be mad at me, right? And that's not a great place to be, probably. But as you start learning and getting excited, and mom and dad are like, oh, that's a great job, like doing those math problems, that's amazing. Now you're kind of like, yeah, I want to do it. So there's this internal locus of control, which I think is just fascinating. Like I think we demonize extrinsic motivation. Like, oh, like if you use extrinsic motivation as a leader, well, it's just bad leadership. Like, not really. That's just life. So yeah, I'll stop there. Extrinsic, intrinsic motivation. What are your thoughts on that continuum? And like you just layered two into one example, which is I think is cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I like we were talking about back and forth the last couple of days about progression along the continuum, and something that has to be extrinsically motivated today can turn into something that is intrinsically motivated 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. I think it all depends on like kind of the framing and how it's tackled. And man, something that just popped into my mind when you were talking was like, how does the nature versus nurture argument play into intrinsic motivation and value and all of that sort of stuff? Because with kids that don't want to do homework, right? There could be some sort of a link between the nature and nurture argument on those sorts of things, and it's just like extrinsic and intrinsic. It's yes and right. There's aspects to both of these things that are going to play into it. With I love we talked about your mountain biking example earlier. How the experience, autotelic, you're in flow, you're all that sort of stuff, but you're not that way for the entire process, which is another important thing that I think we need to break down. It kind of goes back to that reframing comment of all of these things you can look at from almost a project management perspective and break every one of these goals down into smaller subcomponents and tasks. And some of them you're going to need extrinsic motivation for. All right, it's just the way that it is, because it's going to be something that drains you. You don't enjoy doing it. But once you get up on the mountain and you start going, like that flow state is going to be there. When that computer programmer, when he's in his flow and they are just go ahead and crank through that thing, like it's amazing. That person is fulfilled to the max. But getting to work that day might have been kind of difficult. And maybe he didn't know that they were going to have that particular task on that particular coding instance for the day. So extremely interesting layering.
I've got to get super meta here as you're talking on that. We are extrinsically motivated by intrinsic motivation. Like the extrinsic motivator of getting my bike in the car, loading up, greasing my chain, getting all the clothing, driving to the trailhead is literally so that I can spend an hour and a half being intrinsically motivated. Right? Like that's mind. I've never thought about that before, but we can't get
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. Well, and again, I think it's the energy reserves, right? It would be one of those things. As long as you would be, there's an interesting question. Are you intrinsically motivated if the majority of the subcomponent tasks that you're performing give you more energy than they drain away from you? Would if you look at the whole thing, the entire process, would it be intrinsically motivated, or would it be? I mean, I think that's the way that I would look at it. If you're just looking at the whole thing, mountain biking, right? That would be intrinsic motivation, even though it's layered to get to that point. And in order to be that intrinsic motivated activity, you have to have more intrinsic value and energy generated than you do extrinsic.
I don't know. We're gonna have to tease this one apart because I don't know that motivation and energy are linked in that way. Like I don't know that doing something that motivates me gives me energy all the time. I would say it doesn't. Like I'm introverted. Running programs, adventures for care and leadership motivates the hell out of me. It is incredible work. It is super fun, and I'm exhausted at the end because I'm introverted. And I wonder, like to me, energy is more of a constraint. Like if I had unlimited energy, I would need much less motivation to do things because I have energy to do it. And when I don't have energy, that's when I need either discipline, meaning like whether I want to do it or not, I'm going to do it because it's my identity, it's grit, whatever we want to call it, or I have to be motivated more than the energy level that requires, like the energy required to do the thing. Like mountain biking, you need physical energy, emotional energy for me to be extroverted. I don't know. What do you think? Energy and
motivation. That's an interesting concept. Yeah, energy and motivation. Well, and then you go back to, I think that definitely needs a little more teasing out, right? Energy, willpower, how that plays into motivation, and like I think and again, like we said at the very beginning, it's a complex system of processes that interrelates with motivation. It's not just one thing. I'm the same way, right? I'm an introvert, so there's only so much that I can do in larger groups or out in settings before I'm like, okay, that was fun, but I'm done, and I got to go back and kind of recharge. But at the same point in time, I think there is, I do get some energy from doing some of those bigger activities and seeing the aha moments from people that are out there. And I think that's why we're kind of both in this space, is getting that enjoyment and that energy from the aha moments that we're able to kind of lead people to and have them realize on their own based on a couple of principles that are thrown out. Like that gives me energy, even though I'm an introvert. Like I can't do that on my own. I need other person in order to go ahead and do that and give me that energy. Yeah. So I guess that's kind of the frame of reference I was looking at energy from.
Well, and that's an interesting concept because we teach energy as a system and different types of energy. So you can say like, yeah, guiding drains me, and it does emotionally, but spiritually, perhaps it fulfills me. So we're gonna go way deep here. I'm curious. I was talking with my wife Leonie last night. Like, what's the difference between a need and a want? Like, when you start thinking about it, like, oh, I need food to live, but like, Do I need good food? I don't know. Do I need, like, what kind of shelter do I actually need? Um, and I think it's driven by the meaning of life. So we'll just go there. Like, what is the meaning of life? Because as I listen to you, it sounds like, and I don't know if this is true, like the meaning of life for you is to create more energy, right? Like that's why motivation is there. That's what you need, is to do things that build energy, the aha moments, whatever it is. The meaning of life could be to just procreate. So we're just like down at Maslow's, the base of the pyramid: food, water, shelter. It could be to reach self-actualization, and I would say that's probably it, because that's, we're inherently motivated to learn and get autonomy and mastery and have purpose and drive towards something. Like, why do we do that? Because that's the meaning of life, maybe, and that's what we need, right? That's what I'm driving at. Like, if the meaning of life is self-actualization, it follows that we need to be curious, to explore, to learn, to push boundaries. It's not a want, it's a need. If the meaning of life is to procreate, all of that's just a want, still motivating, but a want, not a need. I'll drop that in your lap and see where you go with
it. Yeah, no, that's an interesting one for sure. Like, if you were to have, before your little exposition there on meaning of life and all those other things, I would just look simply at need versus want from the most rudimentary aspect. Like, what what do I need in order to live, or what do you need in order to do X or Y? Like, do you need good tasting food? Nope. You just need food that provides the nutrients in the quantity that is necessary to sustain life. That's a need. You know,
it. I
seeing
can't live
and
on rice
being.
and beans. My whole life, I couldn't do it. At some point, I would need.
Hey, there are cultures that are out there. Again, it goes back to frame of reference and perspective,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Like, what do we need as far as housing in the United States versus what somebody in Ethiopia would need as far as housing, right?
Yeah,
The basic housing here would probably be the Taj Mahal for some people that are out there in different areas of the world. It's all framing
yeah.
and perspective. Um, so that's why, my view of want and need from being in other countries over my career, like, it shapes it differently than it does somebody that has just grown up in the United States or in certain areas of the United States. Somebody that grows up
Yeah.
in Metro Detroit is going to have a different perspective than somebody that grows up in Miami or Beverly Hills or whatever. Like, it's all going to be framed by their life experiences, and again, ultimately tied back to what motivates them and what doesn't motivate them, right? To kind of bring this all back together.
I think it's, and we got to wrap up here soon, but I think it's framed by goals, and we'll get to goals maybe next week. Like, if you have a goal of staying alive, you need rice and beans and a piece of tin to protect you from the rain, right? Like, that's what you need. You want more, you want better food, you want a better house, but your goal is to stay alive. That's all you need. If you have a goal of reaching self-actualization, like, you need intellectual stimulation and exploration and all of these things. Like, you can't do it without those. So a need is like something that you have to have to accomplish a goal. And it goes back to your idea of framing. How you frame a problem for your team or for yourself is going to dictate what's needed. Because you might think like, oh, I need a beautiful house to be self-actualized, but really you probably don't. Like, you might be more likely to be self-actualized in a third world country under a tarp, for whatever reason. So I think goals might be the next step next week, but we have a lot more to talk about here.
I was gonna say we got a ton to talk about. We haven't even touched a few of the questions there.
I, I I want to go on, but we need to stop because our goal is to stop at 30
We need
minutes.
to stop.
Uh, what should people be doing? We always want to tie it back to practical. What are one or two tips you have having thought about this and talked about it for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think something that would be extremely helpful for folks out there to do individually is to use that reframing process, right? No matter what uh, situation you're in, what task you're trying to do, if it's something that you're finding demotivating, um, look at it from a different perspective. Take that, take your past experiences that give you that view, and look at it in a different way.
Yeah.
It can be as easy as I find myself like I can go for a walk down the street and I can see a plant growing out of the concrete. And immediately my perspective has shifted and I now have a little bit more motivation knowing that, Mother Nature's out there and it will persist. So I can get through these sorts of things. So it's a
Yeah.
fantastic way to reframe some stuff. I just like to go out there and look at it that way. And then from kind of a team perspective, um, you know, an accountability culture, right? Looking at building an accountability culture because I think we've all been on teams where there's nothing more demotivating than seeing that there's no accountability when people are not being held to a certain standard, and therefore we're all getting their work.
But
Or sometimes maybe it's us giving other people work.
Trevor, it's just so hard to hold people accountable. I think we need a micro course on that, how to hold people accountable. I want to tie in mine to your framing, and I'm intend to build this out quite a bit. But I think a motivation audit, because we look at motivation as this black and white, like I am or I'm not, or I'm some or I'm a little. There are so many factors, and I will build this out and share it with our audience. What are the constraints? What are the intrinsic motivators? What are the extrinsic motivators right now? What are the future like benefits that I might be getting out of this? What are the future negative outcomes? And just like writing everything down, because that allows you. Because when you say reframing, I'm totally on board with you, but it sounds like, oh, just look at the positive side, like the power of positive thinking. And I don't think that's what you're saying. You're saying like get granular on what is and isn't motivating you and forget about the crap that doesn't matter and focus on the things that do. And you can't do that unless you get granular. So I'll plus one on reframing and do an audit, like figure out what are all the different drivers and constraints and personal factors, from a Snickers bar to a parent who's sick, that are driving you in that moment, and what can you let go of, what can you reframe, what can you amplify. I think there's a lot of benefit there. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to next week. We'll be back talking more on motivation, the meaning of life, goal setting, just the little things, free climbing. I appreciate the time today, Trevor.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.